everybody, this is Chip Ratliff, and you are listening to The Chip Ratliff Show. Here at The Chip Ratliff Show, we bring you music and interviews that entertain and inspire. So let's go ahead and get started, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Peace, man.
Hey, Foxy Lady, lay some skin on me.
Groovy. Have you heard Playtime with Bill Turk and Carrie Kendall? It's a real gas. Every Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. on WCGO, AM 1590 and 95.9 FM.
I can dig it.
The arts.
Far out, baby. Hit me with those digits again.
Sundays, 1 to 3 p.m., 1590 AM and 95.9 FM.
Cool, man. Real cool.
Shorefront is a historical organization specializing in documenting the historical Black experience in Chicago's suburban North Shore. Located in Evanston, Illinois, and with archival collections consisting over 1,500 images, an obituary collection, books and manuscripts, historic newspapers, and other documentation dated back before 1900, Shorefront's archives have been accessed and cited around the globe. To support Shorefront, or for just more information, feel free to go to shorefrontlegacy.org. That's shorefrontlegacy.org. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chip Ratliff Show. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for joining us. Today is a special day. Got somebody here who has been a huge factor, very important in the Black community, and not only in Evanston, but actually worldwide, and we will talk about that soon. I'm happy to say he's a dear friend of mine, probably my best friend. That goes with getting phone calls and texts from me in the middle of the night. From not with troubles, but with, hey man, I got an idea, that kind of thing. And that's just a part of the whole thing, being my best friend. So if you want to be my friend, it comes with some conditions. And he seems to be happy with it. He ain't kicked me out of his house yet, so it's all cool. This person, he is the founder and executive director of Shorefront. Now, for those of you who don't know what Shorefront is, Shorefront collects, preserves, and educates about Black history on Chicago's suburban North Shore. And we will get into how this was started and everything. So without further ado, what did I say, undo? Further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dino Robinson, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So let's kind of go back. So Dino, tell us about your history just a little bit. Like, let's just go back to like maybe college. Don't go back to birth. Let's go back. Let's go back to like
when
college.
I was an embryo.
Yeah. I was born. I remember that day. It was cold. It was a cold.
Dark.
It was dark day, cold day for the summertime. But yeah, let's kind of just go back to just what your history is, you know, and how you came up to this to find Shorefront. You know.
Okay, yeah. So I graduated from Loyola University in Chicago, coming from Evanston Township. I had this interest in graphic design, and that was my career path for Loyola. So I, registered in as a fine art student, with specializing in communication design. But I always had in the background this love of history. I knew I didn't want to be a history teacher, but and I didn't want to necessarily teach history. But I always had that in the back of my mind. I do remember speaking with my grandmother, when I was 13, where I was in South Carolina and visiting my grandmother. It was a hot day. I mean, it was like 104 degrees, outside, and 110 degrees inside.
One of them classic days where you hear a banjo in the background.
Oh, man, no, those cicadas were like loud, always like close by. It's like, where's that cicada? You can never find them either. Like, I hear them. You get close to them, they shut up real quick. So it's one of those things, I'm sitting in the living room, with a hot fan blowing on me because they didn't have air conditioning.
Right, and the air is just air.
It's just
hot air blowing at you.
And you're sitting on this couch that, my grandmother was trying to protect the furniture, so we had the plastic coating over the couch.
Oh, my goodness. So now you're sweating.
I'm already fused to the couch. Sweating with a hot fan blowing on me. She's somewhere in the kitchen, doing, recycling aluminum foil. She's washing the aluminum foil. And I'm sitting there watching TV, black and white still, watching a rerun of I Love Lucy, saying, you know what?
Oh, my goodness.
My parents stuck me down here in the middle of August. Before school starts. They're all gallivanting around town, and here I'm stuck to this couch.
Oh my goodness!
Physically stuck to the couch.
Literally stuck to the couch. Yeah, man. Oh my goodness! So, I don't know if people still get that done.
Yeah, so I looked to the to my side, and my grandmother had this small bookcase, and in there were about like 17 photo albums. So I pulled one out and I put it on my lap. Turn the pages. 13-year-old mind you. Black and white, old dead person. Black and white, old dead person. That's all I saw in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. Just looking through it. I know it's like my family lineage and all that stuff in there, but 13 years old, no context or no captions, just a photograph. And my grandmother saw me flipping through those pages. So I just kind of went through, and as I was going through the pages, she came over to me and sat down next to me, turned back to the first page, and said, "This is your great-great-grandfather, and he worked the shipyards in South Carolina." And one by one, she was telling me the story of each and every one of those photographs in there. I was hooked.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, we got history. And then the stories behind that.
Wow.
And just listening to those stories, like, oh, we were a kick-ass family. Got it. And so it kind of reshaped who I was. I mean, at that pivotal years, like, I need to know who I was. So going into the high school, I knew who I was and what I wanted to do. By the time I graduated from high school, I already knew what my college trajectory was going to be. I did my research. At first I wanted to be an architect. Mm-hmm. Then I saw like how many math classes I had to take for architecture school, and I'm thinking like, ooh, trigonometry, ooh, calculus, ooh. And I'm looking back on my grades like geometry, algebra, ooh, just barely made it through that.
Yeah, how about?
So I had to type in alternate careers.
You had to type in alternate career. They didn't have what you wanted to do.
No. So I saw those math classes and like alternate careers, and one of them popped up was graphic design and advertising. So let me look into that. And so when I got into Loyola, that was my track. I was into graphic design. The university did not offer an African American Studies program, but they offered a minor in African American History and Studies. Okay. So I took all the classes they had, and with those classes, I had these teachers that were just phenomenal. So Loyola University, it's Rogers Park area of Chicago.
Right.
My class interests, especially in my major, my class size was no more than 7 students, and were taught by professionals. So even in the Black History classes, they were small, so no more than 15 students. I think the smallest class size was about 9. So we had this really working relationship with our professors at the time. And I remember this one professor in particular. All the professors were great, African-American men and women in their professions doing their thing. But this one professor I had, this class I had to take, it was like the last class. I'm like, why am I taking this class? Early African Christianity. And I'm thinking like, I gotta take this class, right? Mm-hmm. And I walk into class, me and some of my peers here at the time, we're walking in there, and there's this Jesuit priest, white Jesuit priest, with his head down, and we're walking in this class like, early African Christian, what kind of colonialism class is this? We say, we're already like, charting our like protest march.
You're about to rebel.
I put on my beret on real quick. I'm practicing my fist pumps. Like what chant are we going to start yelling here?
Right.
And so like 5 minutes into the class, he finally looks up and says, "I bet you're wondering why a white guy's teaching this." And it kind of shut us up. We're like, wait, what? Okay, did you read our mind?
Yeah, it's like, what? He told you what?
And then he said, the title of this class is Early African Christianity. That's my front. What I'm going to teach you is how to look for first-hand sources to tell your own story. And we just sat back like, it's on.
Wow.
And what he taught us, like he would take us to libraries and look, not just what's on the shelves, going to the stacks. Look for the stuff that's not being published. Look for the stuff that's not in circulation. Because that's where your history is. Because nobody white is putting your history out there. It's up to you to look for your own history.
Wow.
And that kind of like inspired me in many ways. I just didn't know how to apply it at that time. So all of my career, I got into advertising. I was art director for a while. Then I left into my own business. But I was also, reflecting back on my grandmother, got into my own family history. So I started researching my own family history, creating an extensive family tree. And as I was getting engaged with the community, I remember running across a editor of the Evanston Clarion newspaper. He had some like social opening at his house, promoting his newspaper and his art. And he pulled me aside, and we're just talking, chatting in general about what we like doing and stuff. And I said, yeah, I do some photography. I'm into advertising design. I got my own business. And he kind of cut me off and said, man, it would be great if you do some, write about Black history in Evanston. And I'm thinking, like, where did that come from?
I was just sitting there going, where did that come from? Yeah.
I think I might have mentioned that, I was, like, into some history. Mm-hmm. Very, like, nonchalant. So when he said, I'll offer you a column to write an article on Black history. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, okay, I'm not the best writer in the world. You don't want me writing anything for a newspaper. But he continued afterwards. He continued to pressure me to do so. I mean, it wasn't like a hard pressure. He was just really encouraging me to do something. And again, white guy. He said, "I'm a white guy. I can't write this history. It wouldn't be right coming from a white guy."
Right. And
so,
everybody would be second guessing it. Like,
right.
Is this the truth? Why is he doing this?
Right,
what's his ulterior motive? Is he making money off this or something?
So with that, I didn't tell him that I was interested. Starting to get interested. But what I did do is start looking around. Like, well, let me see what's out there, because apparently there's a Black community here, and apparently something's done by our community. So let me ask some questions. Let me talk to some people. The more people I talked to, no books have been written. I went to the local history centers, nothing really there. The local one here at Evanston had 3 file folders they pulled out for me, and it said colored.
Yeah, okay. That point is the point I always start out when I introduce you, and I go, okay, let me tell you about how this started. Kind of go into a little bit more detail about that. What happened and how that
so I had
made
two,
everything go.
That was the first time back in that center since I was in junior high school.
Okay.
I was doing something for the Chicago Metro History Fair when I got into high school. And I went in there one day to do some research. And the reception I got there, this was in the early 80s. The reception I got there was like, who are you and why are you here? And I literally walked out. So I never did ask that question I needed to know at the time. So I went to the Evanston Public Library and some other places to get my research. But that was the last time I went in there until I started doing research on the Black community. So I walked in this time, made an appointment, talked to the archivist there, and asked, I'm looking into some Black history and need to know what was happening here early in this history. So he said, oh, yeah, we got some stuff. And walked me over to this file cabinet, like these source file cabinets, like clippings and things of that nature. And he kind of pulled out one drawer and kind of raffled through halfway through and pulled out 3 file folders and literally said, here they are, colored.
Wow.
In my mind, I'm going, wow, real colored?
Yeah. There's so many things wrong with that. It's like, okay, it's colored, labeled colored, and you just gave it to me as if you're just like, oh yeah, I'm proud. We do have something.
Yeah, we do have some color.
And you only had 3 file folders.
And they were clipping, basic newspaper clippings. Now later on, they did have some other stuff in there, but it wasn't organized. And some things, as I got to learn the collection over at the History Center, I saw how things can get misidentified. So I remember another occasion, as I was already well-groomed and doing Shorefront and pushing that along, the organization and I became very good partners. They were really interested in what I was doing, and they were very accommodating after that. So I would go in the research room, and the archive's off limits to the general public. And said, "Oh, it's Dino. He can go back there. He knows where everything is, and he knows I'm going to take good care of it too."
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, helping them out on something. So I remember going through some like miscellaneous photo clippings, and I pulled up one photograph, and there were 3 women, black women, at a picnic, and and on the back of it said 3 women eating watermelon at a picnic. And I turned back over again and said, "You need to relabel this because these are the founders of the Iroquois League." And they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's Eva Ruse right there."
3 women eating watermelon,
right?
And so change that. That's
right. So you can kind of deduce that it's like this was much more than that. This could have been a fundraiser for the Iroquois League,
right?
You understand what the Iroquois League was? Now they had archives of files of the Iroquois League, so now they're able to make that connection. Faces to an organization. Yeah. And then other things that were like mislabeled. Now we'll just go there and sometimes like, oh, by the way, this is, missed here and just fix this up right over here. But what I also saw in this history was how the history of the black community has been written. And it's usually written in this paternalistic viewpoint of we have this poor black community and we had to help uplift them to become their, be their full potential. And I was like, that's not the case. I mean, we had all these systems that were placed in front of us that did not afford us those opportunities to do our own thing. And when we did, they're always taken away, and most times violently.
Yeah, violently. Like for some reason they thought we were doing. Don't get me started on Tulsa
So I started getting this like idea of, and it wasn't like formulated in my head yet. Just like, what can Shorefront be? And we need to have our own archive where the community controls its own narrative. And that overrode anything that Shorefront did is the community ownership and controlling narratives. I want to strip that power away from the institutions that have been well established, predominantly white institutions that are doing interpretations of what they have discovered. Right. And put it back in the hands of the people who live the experience and have connections to this experience, especially since it's so localized. So what I'm reading about, there are descendants that are living here today that are related to these people that we're reading about now. So why interpret when you can actually go talk to the families? Right. And so I started doing that. I started interviewing people left and right and say, hey, and I had like some early board members who were really instrumental in one, getting me out of my shy shell, because I was shy for a long time. Like, you couldn't get me to do an interview to save your life. If this was 25, 30 years ago, this interview, nope. Not gonna happen. No, not gonna happen.
I don't do that.
I don't do those things. I'm like Prince. It's like first interview with American Bandstand.
Right. Five.
So I was I was very deliberate in wanting to hear people's stories. I'm not from Evanston. So sometimes some of the pushback I got was, "Who are you to do this? This is not your history."
Really?
And my response was always, this is everybody's history. And pushing back on other questions like, what do you know about our history? And I said, well, what do you know about the history? And what I found a pattern of people telling their histories from their own point of view in their time period. So you had this traveling timeline that keeps shifting and resetting itself every generation. And I want to change that dynamic and push that back to the beginning. So when people would say, what do you know about our history? The first person to do such and such was this person in 1945. And I said, oh, well, what about the person in 1905 that did the same thing? And they said, oh, really? I don't know that person. Well, he was here in Evanston. Evanstonian.
Right.
Right. So, and that kind of actually makes people think broader, that history is not about your individual interpretation, but what is the community collective.
It's the fact, not just what you think. For some reason, it makes you feel good that you know something. Yeah, exactly. Now, Mel, it's so interesting that you would think, because I was going to ask you what problems you had, but you kind of went into it. You would think the people that this was for would just jump in all behind you. Oh, yeah, let's do it. They're the ones who probably gave you, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, probably gave you the biggest flack and put in front of you the most obstacles to accumulate a history that was to benefit all of us and all of our stories. You know, like you said, I'm not from Evanston, but this is Black history. This is showing, and the fact, and one of the things I've learned among many, one of the things that I've learned from working with Shorefront is that everyone has some history in their closet that they don't know about. Right, you know what I mean? That's got some pictures of something, and so many people, and that's and just to kind of give everybody a little preface, that I was appointed the president of the board of directors with Shorefront, and kind of. Let me tell you this story about that.
Yeah, I like that story.
Yeah, the story about this.
You became president.
Yeah, when I became president. So, like I said, I'm the president of the board of directors, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. At the time, I thought, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But I remember it was during a time where, well, first of all, Dino called me and he said, hey, because we had been friends for years, and I knew Shorefront. It was kind of something Dino did, you know, and he would tell me about it and things like that. But I'm like, okay, cool, man. Whatever. You want to go to Hubs? Okay, cool. You know, but he said, hey, man, do you want to be on the board? And I said, well, sure. And I was thinking, I don't know what to do with the Black History Organization, but sure, if you want me to be on there, you're my friend, sure, I'll do it. So I got on the board of directors and I started learning stuff, you know, and it was at a time where Shorefront had been around for a while, but it was still really, and even now it's fledgling. I mean, it's been around for 25 years. 25 years in the of course in the history industry is birth. You know, we're still going goo goo gaga right now. But yeah, we were at a point where we were still looking for like officers and things like that. And I remember we were at meetings and we were talking about, oh, we need a president. We need a president. We need a president. I was sitting there. I had no idea about me being it. Was not thinking about me at all. Trust me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, we got to be able to look at it. We got to find somebody to be president. So one night I get a call from Dino. I'm like, hey, man. So he said, hey, you want to talk? I got to talk about something. I was like, sure. The bottom line is he had been talking to the late, great Hecky Powell. Hecky Powell passed away maybe a couple of weeks ago. And he's the guy who founded Hecky's Barbecue here in Evanston. But he's on the honorary board of Shorefront. So I guess Dino had been talking about him, about we're looking for a president, things like that. And Hecky said, you already have a president. And Dino said, who? Like I would have said. And he said, Chip. And he said, maybe you can take it from here because you were there. What
mean, it was kind of a back and forth because I think Hecky was feeling me out on a serious level because I've known him for, decades. I mean, I knew when I was 16, I knew who he was and he knew who I was. But that was a different relationship then. But then when I got into my profession, it started evolving differently. So when we were having this discussion, and he was testing me that day because there was like a lot of questions that were happening. Like, what do you think about so-and-so? What do you think about this situation? And I would answer back, and I would challenge him too. What do you think about that? And how come you did it this way? And we were just really aligning ourselves with each other, understanding that we have the same goals and we approach it differently. And he said equally is effective and needed, like a balance. And so we're talking about this, leadership, and he was really getting on me about. I was getting on him about. I'm tired of people thinking that this is Dino's project. This is a community project. We have a board, blah blah blah, and I need to get more structure in there so people understand that. And we started going through officers, and he said, "Yeah, you got a president, Chip." And I'm like, "Yeah." You know, it was literally simple as that. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I know what my homework is. I have to give Chip a call.
Yeah, and so when I got the call, I'm like, me who? You want me to be president or what? You know? I'm like, I was like, I don't know how to be no president.
I was doing all the lines like, oh, it's easy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Delegating.
Yeah. Dino's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not going to take much of you to be able to do it. I'm like, you sure? You know, it's one of those things, man, where and I think all of us have done it over our lifetimes. We're trying to talk ourselves out of something good because we're afraid. We don't know what's going to happen. So we're trying to talk ourselves out of going into the unknown. And I can say wholeheartedly, it's one of the best decisions I ever made to just go ahead and say, yeah, to do Shorefront. Because I've learned so much from you, from the things we've done. And like I said, just learning from you that everybody has history, you know. So, and that I just set that up, not necessarily just to talk about me, but just to say what I've learned and just my closeness to Shorefront and my knowledge of Shorefront. And with all what you said, Dino, of all the things that happened, and this is a great example of not letting the obstacles make you stop, not letting the obstacles just get in your way. I mean, they'll get in your way, but you keep going and you've kept going and you're still going. What has just motivated you to do that? Because, I mean, you could have just stopped and then just gone somewhere and done something else.
Yeah, this kind of takes me back to my childhood when I was in elementary school. So I grew up part of my life in Glenview, Illinois. And that was, if you look at the demographics on that, especially when I was there in the 1970s, where we were so it was my parents and my brother and I. So we made 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 black people in Glenview, Illinois.
Yeah, so that gives everybody
right. So I didn't meet the other ones until I got to junior high school. It's like, oh wait, there's more than my family.
Hey.
So I integrated my elementary school, and I remember specifically a teacher there that was basically telling me that you're incapable of learning because you're black.
Wow.
And in my mind, fortunately, my parents were, I come from a long line of family members that had gone to school. Turn of the century, going to Fisk and joining military and community service and service to the country. So that was kind of like instilled without me knowing it was instilled in me in that way. My parents were always big. My mother was a teacher. My dad was in corporate. Wanted a good life for us and was always saying that, family structure is important. Giving back to the community is important. And knowing who you are is important, and stand up for yourself. And my dad was military, coming from military himself. So I remember waking up Saturday mornings. It's drill time. Let's clean up.
Wow.
So you get up. All I want to see is you humping over and doing work. You're gonna mow the lawn. You're gonna vacuum this, sweep that. Just all day long Saturday we're cleaning. It didn't matter. We're cleaning. Period. Don't say anything. I'm cleaning.
We're cleaning. That's it. You want to go? Nope, I gotta clean.
So going to this teacher that told me that, in my mind, what it triggered with me is like, you can't tell me what I can and can't do. And that's always stayed with me. And I don't know why it kind of came to fruition, but it came to fruition at an early age. But at the same time, I just think back on it now, and it could have gone in so many different directions. That teacher could have told me that same thing, and I could have retreated back into a shell.
Absolutely. And
not do anything. Yeah. Oh, the teacher said I can't learn, so I guess I can't learn. So why even try? But my attitude was, you can't tell me what to do. And I know I can do this.
Wow.
Now, fortunately, I was just that one teacher. I had some peers that gave me a hard time, using the N-word on me. Can't do this and can't do that. Again, you can't tell me what to do. I was, tiny as a kid. I weighed like a featherweight. It was like as thick as a Q-tip. Didn't help that, my name was Morris, so everybody would call me Morris the cat. That was a famous commercial at the time. Then I said, okay, forget Morris. I'm going to go by Dino. I'm like, oh, no. Then became Dino the dog from the Flintstones, And then when, exactly. Then when the TV show came out, Different Strokes, I was Arnold.
You honor, oh
Yeah.
Lord.
So, it just went down that pipeline. So no matter what, I was going to get teased, pushed around, and bullied for the color of my skin and for the names I had.
Wow.
So it kind of built this character in me that if someone's going to take me out, I'm going to take them with me. And that fierceness, I wouldn't start a fight or anything like that, but I would defend myself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But that fierceness in that, I think people understood after the first encounter when they tried to do something that was wrong, something wrong by me. I think they learned very quickly, don't do that again. The principal knew the situation I was in at the time. Unfortunately, the principal was an ally of my family.
Well, that's good. That helps.
Right, it did help a lot. So he knew that if there was an altercation, it's because someone uttered the N-word. And they felt the wrath. Mm-hmm. And I would fume, I'm sitting in the principal's office fuming, and say, Dino, just calm down. It's all right. It's okay. Your mom's been called. She's coming. Calm yourself down. You can go back to class. Mm. But the kid that would start the fight would get suspended.
You had it real good because it was totally the opposite at the high school I was at. And I'll call it out at De La Salle in Chicago. I don't know what the climate is like now, but I mean, the N-word was thrown around. It was the first time. I mean, I heard it outside of that, of course, but when I got to De La Salle, it was the first time I'd been called it, and no one did anything. And I think I remember hearing it, and I looked around waiting for a teacher to say something, and nobody said anything.
Imagine that for me, that happened to me the first time in kindergarten. And was in front of the teacher, and the teacher didn't do anything about it. She just looked away. So I knew at that time I had to fend for myself.
Yeah, and that's a sad thing because it still happens today. Like I said, I don't know about De La Salle's culture, but I know my kids say they have gone through the same thing. I remember, and my kids are, when I say kid, when we say kids, I mean my kid, my son is 21, my daughter's 24, so it wasn't that long ago that they were in high school. And they'll talk about it now, how they just heard the N-word thrown around,
right
and nobody, and the teachers were right there, nobody would do anything. It's sad that exists, and but the good thing is that you had been taught, and this is one thing that we have to understand now, raising our kids, as the black community, we have to make our kids strong at home so they can deal with what they're going to deal with in the world.
Exactly.
We're the only community, I really feel, I can't relate to any other community. But if you're talking about a race or a community that has to go out into the real world and deal with being called N-word or whatever, being told that you can't do something because... And
even beyond that is how to conduct yourself in the world. We have to give our sons and daughters the talk.
Yeah, we have to.
It's like, my daughter went off to college in rural Colorado. And I said, you have to be careful going out to these parties because if trouble goes down, you'll be looked at as the instigator. No matter what. You could have been hidden in a closet, doing nothing, minding your own business. It still would have been your fault.
Right.
And I think I got through to her one day when she came home and I saw this look on her face. And I said, what's going on? And she said to me, Dad, I think I'm beginning to understand what you meant about privilege. And I said, wow, tell me about that. Tell me what you've experienced. And she has to learn how to navigate that. And it's hard because we want our kids to grow up feeling free, that they can do things, explore, and know they're safe doing it. But raising, black, young men and young women in this world, in this country, it's not so, oh, you made a mistake. It's, I hope you're alive. Right,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, my kids did the same thing. I mean, when they were in high school, they were victims of it, but they weren't really understanding what I was talking about. But then now they tell me stories of, even my son tells me stories about how he's been in the neighborhood for that he's grown up in and really can't remember anything else. But he's still kind of nervous about walking down the street because he doesn't want police to say, "What you doing?" You know, whatever. He went to every school. He went to the grammar school, the junior high, the high school, all in the area.
Still labeled.
He actually, and I'll tell you this story, and he doesn't mind if I tell you, because when he was maybe in his junior or senior year in high school, one of his friends dropped him off. We lived in Morton Grove. And one of his friends dropped him off, and his friend has his friend's father is a banker, and he drives a black like S500, wears a suit and a tie, clean. They were standing out front talking. Door was open. My son's standing there. Son's not threatening looking. He might remind you of Trayvon, you know. But, and there's a guy standing there with a three-piece suit on and a Mercedes-Benz. Police pull up. Hey, is everything okay here? My son's like, yeah, everything's fine. Do you live here? What's going on? Do you live here? And my son goes, yes, I live here. I can't remember if he had to go in the house and get his ID or if he had to just show him his ID. Then, of course, the cops left him alone after that. But to me, I was so, of course, angered that my son has been, wait a minute, just because, I mean, do they really look that threatening to you? Like they're stealing something? Is that what thieves do now? Well, they pull up in Mercedes-Benz and three-piece suits, stand out in front of the house, talk.
We're proper criminals.
Yeah.
So we dress the part of being
and discuss
posh.
what we're doing. When the police come by, we don't move. That's what the troublemakers do now.
Yes.
Come on. You know, I wasn't home, of course. But he told me that story. Of course I was livid.
Yeah,
you know?
But and just think of it this though. I mean, this country has a culture of that. So the indoctrination of racism that's taught to the white population is ingrained from day one. Cartoons are what kids watch, the ads, the subtleties. It's so rampant that we think it's normal. But even now, I mean, if you look at Looney Tunes, like if you get the uncut Looney Tunes commercials,
the old ones too. Yeah.
You get the old Tom and Jerry,
the old originals that they haven't edited yet. Yeah,
right. And Tom and Jerry used to have the Mammy character in there. They edited a lot of those out now.
They had to change it. Yeah,
Bugs Bunny had a lot of racial overtones in there too.
Tons of them. Yeah,
and so all those have over time been edited out. But if you look at growing up in the '70s, those were still there. And you would watch them, and I remember watching those kids like, what am I watching? What is this?
They were just stereotypes of the 70s, you know what I mean? All of them, hey, what's happening, brother?
So when you have that,
all that.
And so if you have communities like Glenview and Morton Grove, that their only contact to black people are on TV, or on radio, and talking amongst their friends, and hearsay, they bleed black blood. They're going to believe that.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, when I got to Loyola and, people were saying, I remember being invited to a party at somebody's house. And my buddy, who was black from the south side of Chicago. And, me growing up in Glenview, I kind of knew the routines like, look, you're in for an adventure of your lifetime.
We're going to totally different.
We're going to a white party. Now, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go up and ring the doorbell and let in. They will already know our names. 1. 2, they will ask you what the latest dance is. 3, one girl is going to touch your hair because she wants to touch your hair. They feel a touch like. Somebody's going to ask you if you have black blood.
Oh, Lord.
And I swear, I think there was like a litany of other things I said too. Now, halfway through the party, he came and found me and said, dude, to the T, point by point, in that same order, they asked those questions. I'm like, welcome to no knowledge land. I mean, this is really interesting. How, if you cannot navigate that, though, in this world that we live in, whatever profession you're getting into, if you cannot navigate that, you're already out of that workforce. Yeah. So forget being a clinical psychologist. because your peers are all going to be mostly white.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, you're going to see that.
Right.
So how do you navigate working within that structure of peers that already look down on you, saying you're just a special case, you're affirmative action, you may have come from an inner city school with not the right type of education and the right type of pedigree and the right social norms.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already counting against you. They're going to assume that for you already.
Right.
So the best thing you do to get back at them is call their bluff and surprise them. Don't tell them anything about yourself. Let them keep guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to find that you're going to move through there smoothly because you're always going to catch them off guard. Like, oh, I didn't know you knew that. Like, well, why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't I know that? Right. Just because of my skin color. Why? You tell me why I wouldn't know.
And so I love playing that game a lot. You know, like, oh, you didn't know I didn't, or like second, one up them. even in my career when I was in advertising, I remember distinctly working with one agency, and I mean, talk about toxic society, toxic corporate structure. I mean, arguments left and right, name calling, race baiting, all happening in this one organization. And I remember there was this one hot advertising firm that everybody wanted to get into in the 90s. I applied for that job and got it.
Okay.
And there was another art director there that was my peer, young white woman, walked up to me and said, how can an N-word like you get that job? Just point blank. People walking by, didn't matter. That's what she came out of her mouth. And I said, well, because it takes talented people to get in. That was my response. Left her speechless. And it didn't faze me at all. I just kept walking. She didn't exist to me. And I think when I understood that they don't exist to me, that no matter what they tried to do, because I put a lot of walls in front of me, and none of that fazed me. Because if you let it faze you, it holds you back.
Yeah.
So bringing to Shorefront and those same barriers, come from all different directions. Friends I thought were friends will like turn their back. Our own community will say, well, who are you to do this? White scholars will say, well, I'm going to challenge you every step of the way because I don't see it in the book, so it couldn't have existed, and I would challenge back every step of the way, pulling that power away from each one of those people, repackaging it and putting it the power back to where it's supposed to be in our community. And so in doing this, and how the board developed the Shorefront, I think the message I always give. First thing you do when you get on our board is you check your ego at the door. And if your ego plays through, I will escort you out because that will tank an effort and will also tank our credibility as an organization if you let your ego get in the way. It's not about you. We're doing this for future generations. We're doing this for the community.
Yeah, there's a huge picture that we're looking at, not just this little bitty picture that somehow you're living in.
Right. Now, everybody that's involved benefits from it. You learn something new, you can apply it to your career. It may provide additional yes, we're in this public space now.
Yeah. How about it?
So we're we have all these different opportunities where board people can get pull things out of that. So you doing with your music and everything, and how you're able to utilize the information or like contacts with Shorefront to promote yourself. I don't go against that. It's not blatant. You find a synergy that works with it, and I encourage that because we all want to advance in our lives. So even we had our first two directors, Debbie Chess Maybe and Joy Russell. Both of them, I kept on encouraging them to use this as a stepping stone for your career growth. I don't expect you to be here for the rest of your life because I know you have many other dreams and plans that you want to pursue. So test out your theories here and implement them and take what you learn from that to your next position. And I forwarded that. I mean, I remember Joy sometimes would come to me and say, well, Dino, what do you think about this idea? I'm like, what are you asking me for? You're the director. And I always baffled her at first. Like, look, stop asking me.
Just do it. That's
do
your
it.
job.
I got
trusting you.
Yeah. I'm the founder. Yes, I am the founder of this organization, but you are the director. You have a better vision. I'm too close to this. This is my baby. So I am stepping back on purpose so that you can take the lead and figure out what direction we need to go in with this, and we will follow.
Right.
Period. Do that with all the board members. Each of you have distinct traits and skills that are necessary for the growth. And if I can't get beyond myself to let that happen,
Right.
then I'll be responsible for taking an organization that everybody's trying to do something with, and my ego got in the way. So if I take that away and say this is everybody's stuff, it puts a whole different spin on everything, and it has a whole different energy.
Right.
People know that when I'm out there doing something, it's not what Dino wants to do this for his own pocket. I put a ton of money in this organization and a ton of time. I think I remember one year I tracked my time just to see what I was spending. I had a full-time job and I was doing Shorefront. I was pulling 80 hours a month with Shorefront work outside of work. So, when you would like text me at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I text you back, I'm still up.
Yeah, right. I do that because I kind of have an idea. I'm like, Dino's too busy to be asleep. It's funny, and just let everybody, like when we have our monthly meetings, everybody has their report. Like, three of us have our report. It'd be the president's report, the treasurer's report, Dino's founder's report. Long story short, I'll have maybe one, maybe two lives. Dino has like a page and a half of everything he's done in the last 30 days. And I'll joke with him. It's like, you only got one page? You slept this month, didn't you? You're slipping, man. You're slipping. And that's the kind of thing that, everybody needs to understand. And that's why I look to you and I say, if you want to look at someone who just doesn't let the obstacles get in his way, you just told some stories that I didn't even know about you. And I understand that's why Dino is so strong, because it's been inbred in him. And it's something, like I said, as blacks, African Americans, whatever you want to call us this day, what we have to do, and we have to teach our kids that we have a history and we're strong. And that's why Shorefront is so important. It's because people say, well, why is your history so important? And there's that whole phrase, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you came from.
Right.
Okay, let's break that down, what that means. Where you came from is your foundation. It's how you grow. It's how you know your history. It's how you know, why is this person treating me the way they're treating me because of the color of my skin. If you don't know your history, you have no idea why that's happening. And you get an idea, and you can understand, all right, this is their history and this is what's in them, and that's what they've been taught. I know what my history is because I've got an organization like Shorefront who gives me the truth and gives me my history that I can build on and I can be proud of when I walk into these situations. Like you say, if you don't have that strength and that knowledge, when they come at you like that, you're going to kind of cower. Because you don't know. You think, well, maybe something is wrong with me because of the color of my skin. That's why they're doing it. No, that's racism. That's evil. That's bad. That's not good what they're doing. And it's done out of ignorance, mostly ignorance, and it's done out of fear, of the power that you possess, as an African American, as a black person,
And also that intimidation that, a lot of times I'm talking to scholars. And you really have to know what you're talking about. And I don't know like authors' names of prominent books left and right. I don't have a PhD in history. I don't have a master's degree in history, but I understand concepts. And no offense to any PhD out there. I respect the work and the diligence you've done in your research and quoting everybody else's work and finding the right thing to do. But sometimes, just theories and dissertation that, a student had worked so hard on doesn't necessarily apply to life. And so what I want to implement is like, okay, this is the concept. Let's test it. Let's really test it. Looks good on paper, but when we go out and talk to the real world, you see it doesn't work.
Right.
So, and I find myself talking sometimes to people who don't believe in the history that you're trying to tell. And a lot of times it can be very, confrontational. And you have to know the audience you're talking to. And, like me and you talking, I could say one thing, but it may not go over well with someone else.
Right.
So you have to learn how to communicate in a way that connects people and engage people in conversation, not have it become offensive and defensive. I'm not trying to berate people, even those, a group of people have done us harm. I'm not trying to berate. What I'm trying to do is enlighten in a way that there is more than one side to a story. I mean, you take to the 4th of July. Yeah, it's Independence Day. I'm like, yeah, but for who?
Right, exactly.
So that's a real clear case for who. Because as far as I'm concerned, my ancestors were still picking cotton by force.
Yeah, on July 4th, July 4th, 1776.
Right, yeah, we were still picking cotton, so, or getting whipped, or getting kidnapped, getting raped. So we were not celebrating any type of independence.
Right.
And so this celebration that it becomes the American thing has no meaning to me whatsoever. So how do you share that with people and make them understand that, or have them understand? Because I can't make them change their mind.
Right.
But understand that there's a different point of view, and you cannot bully me down with your quotes from different works and different authors and different historians if the basic premise is wrong. And if that's wrong, then your whole argument falls apart. And right now, especially in this day and time, what's going on right now in the nation, the United States history is being challenged in a real way. That is very evident, and people is coming to fruition for a lot of people. Like, oh wow, what did I just spend my last 4 years learning? My entire educational system learning is wrong. It's missing a whole lot of pieces. History is messy. It's complicated. Multiple layers, multiple viewpoints that all play together. So, and with Shorefront, we are telling history, American history, through the lens of a black person from the black community. So, yes, we are eliminating white influences because we're trying to focus and refocus the strength that we had as a community. Because the other part is being told in the history books already. So there's no point of reintroducing that over and over again. I'm trying to refocus saying that this is what we did.
Right.
And this is why we're strong in doing it. And that's why this history is important to us.
Yep. And it's a necessity. It's become a necessity. I think it's always been a necessity. But even in the times we're in now, it's even more a necessity. It's even more important. And that's why, not only as a member of the board of the organization, but just as someone who has, things like this podcast and access to, media and things like that, it's important that people know, especially black people, know that something like this exists and that it needs to be supported. Not just, okay, well, y'all go ahead, good luck.
Do your thing.
You need to support this. That's how these things continue and they grow when they become huge and things like that. It's not because of apathy. It's because of the energy. It becomes of, a conscious effort to make these things happen. No, we're not outside everywhere.
That's my Harley.
Yeah, that's Dino's Harley. I've kept him longer, and it's just revving up and things like that. But yeah, you've spoken to the importance of Shorefront, the importance of knowing your history. Where do you think we need to go from here? As far as, and I'm not saying that you are the person speaking for all black people,
Right.
but just in your opinion as a historian, where do you think we need to go from here? I mean, for me right now, I'm afraid that because there's no leader has really emerged, like a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or whatever, that has emerged from this to keep everything going. I'm afraid that it just dies down.
Well, And here's how I like, this current generation of thinkers. And I think the Black Lives Matter is a perfect example of diversifying leadership. Because, Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Crispus Attucks, Booker T. Washington, W.B. Du Bois. So throughout history, there have been that individual leader that does something, that unites the entire community together. We need to get out of that aspect of finding that one leader to lead us. It's actually a community of leaders. And what I like about Black Lives Matter, that's what that is. It's a community of leaders. This is the structure. But you do what's important in your community under the umbrella of Black Lives Matter. So in Chicago, it might be about police brutality. But in Atlanta, it could be about education. In Mississippi, it could be about hunger. So you can tool Black Lives Matter to what you need under this umbrella with all these tools that are there. And the women that kind of put all this stuff together, let it be free. It's like, here's the structure, fly, be free. Take this information, do what's important in your community. So now we have a collective of new leaders that are utilizing that template and empowering themselves in their community to build on it. And so over the years, since Black Lives Matter, that moniker became, used, there's been the slow growth of that, and now it's kind of come to a head with what's happening
with everything that's happening.
What's happening now. You see the power of Black Lives Movement. This went global.
Yeah.
So
when I saw that
protesting.
happen, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, people are protesting not just in the United States, but globally, and it's been sustained. They're still protesting, still demonstrating, and not saying protest and shouting and holding banners, but coming with policy changes. No more of this. Let's do some kumbaya, feel good. So let's start a book club and talk about racial inequities, blah, blah, blah. No, we're like, enough of that. I'm not going to any more diversity clinics so I could share my trauma with you guys. If you want to affect change, you're in control of those policies. Change it. If you don't change it, then you're culpable. So now it's putting the onus back on the communities that are causing us harm. We're not coming to you to save you and make you feel good, because our lives are at stake. You get to go home to your gated communities,
right, exactly,
and do whatever you want. Put on your resume, I helped the Black Lives Matter movement. I marched down the street, and I made my own custom banner, and I got my 14-year-old to be involved in it. Yes, I go home, I might get shot tomorrow by the police.
Right, exactly.
Accused of casing a neighborhood in front of my own house.
Exactly.
So
yeah, right,
that's the difference.
Exactly.
So you want to make change, if you want to be part of the change the policies. And and we have to continue controlling our narrative, because so easily, when Black Lives Matter was first mentioned, I purposely listened to the media. And the first thing the media was doing was, 1, who's the leader? 2, is this a terrorist group? Those are the first 2 things that were coming out of their mouths. And I'm like, really? That's always the MO of defense. Like, let's discredit and disparage.
Right, exactly. That's true. Yep.
And that happens all the time with whatever we do. I mean, even to this day, for a long time, we talk about like the civil rights movement through the 1960s. We always talk about King, but nobody wants to talk about the Black Panthers. Oh, no, you don't talk about the Black Panthers. Right. That was an effective smear campaign by the government that disparaged the Black Panther Party.
Right.
So there are these crazy militant, gun-toting thugs. That's what we learned. But they're the ones that started the school, like the lunch programs, the breakfast programs, free clinics, and challenging the police. We're protecting our neighborhood from corrupt police coming in and indiscriminately killing us.
And that's one of the few things that I hate about the movie Forrest Gump, because that's how they represent the Black Panthers. They're this militant, gun-toting, yes, we hate white people, we hate anybody, it's all about hate. When he started talking about Black Panthers, it was hate. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute, stop. That's not what the Black Panthers was about, I mean, yeah, were they trying to protect themselves? Like, you know, nobody's talking about the white guy white people walking into the government buildings.
Yeah, government buildings armed and yelling and yelling at people,
yelling at people, protesting. Nobody's shooting them down,
right.
you know.
And you got us, you know, like I got a gun permit and get shot square in the chest in full compliance. So there is a huge double standard in this country. And so when we say Black Lives Matter, you know, it's not saying Black Lives Matter because all y'all suck. We're not saying that.
Right.
We're saying there is my house is on fire. Yes, your house is important too, but my house is on fire.
It's on fire, exactly. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, it's like, yeah, mine is on fire. Yours is not. Yeah, your house is important, but yours ain't burning down.
Right.
Mine is. So if your house is on fire, they're going to put yours out too. I just want to make sure that they will. There's a question if they're going to put mine out.
Right.
They're definitely going to put yours out.
Right.
The
fire truck's going to show up and start putting water on
your
property, even though my house is still on fire.
Right. They're going to do that first to make sure your house doesn't catch on fire. Then come and ask me, why is my house on fire? Right. And why
did you start the fire?
Yeah, did I start the fire? Why should they put the fire out in my house? You know.
So yeah, it's just and we're seeing this. And we're doing more to hold people and institutions accountable. I mean, I've been in a situation recently, a diversity initiative, where I told the group, I said, all right, this plan is fine and good. You know, do your thing. I'm not going to participate. And fortunately, they understood, like, oh, we understand. And I kind of knew what was going to happen with that. And it happened to a T, the whole conversation, the way it went. And, you know, this group is well-meaning and wants to do something. But, you know, working within a structure that's controlled, as a controlled institution, they're not going to change the policies. They'll put out a feel-good letter. No, we believe in diversity, blah, 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 blah. You know, all these big corporations are doing that.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, and right now I found, I mean, there's an article right now that did a parody of that whole thing. Kind of like going one by one, showing how absurd that is, saying, so what we're going to do is, you know, the same old. We're going to institute a special committee of diversity and equity commission of the person. We're going to tack it on to the token black person who's already doing 6 jobs. And it's not going to get his tenure because even though they did 10 times more work on their tenure, they're not going to get the promotion they deserve. You know, but we're going to work them to death. They have to do it in a shorter period of time. And in solidarity, we'll do a diversity equity training that we'll spend 5 minutes actually working on and then ignoring the rest of it. And at graduation, we'll wear kente cloth at the graduation.
Yeah, right.
You know, that doesn't do anything.
That was ridiculous. I saw that. I'm like, why are you wearing kente cloth?
And now they're talking about like NFL, the opening season will play the Black National Anthem. I'm like, no, hire Colin Kaepernick back.
Yeah, that's
what we want to see.
Yeah, hire Colin Kaepernick. Say his name. Yeah. Get him back on the field. Get him back on the field.
Please don't sing the song.
Don't sing the Black National Anthem. I don't want you to sing the Black National Anthem at the NFL game. I've never said to myself, they should sing the Black National Anthem. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just make sure.
I'm trying to watch football and good players play football.
Right. Don't
politicize it.
Just make sure the players are treated equally. Just make sure the players don't have to be subject to the N-word, you know, and nobody does anything about it. Just make sure they're treated the same way that the white players are treated. That's what you need to do.
Right.
Not go, and like you said about, you know, all these companies, they put out the messages, we believe in Black Lives Matter, whatever. They're trying to keep you from not going there.
Right.
They're thinking,
but we're all reading between the lines now. We're like, this is some BS letters. I have a collection of those letters. It's like, what, do they follow the same template?
Yeah.
It's like, I fill in your name here. Use either one of these, like either use Black Lives Matter or Race and Equity or Committee of Diversity. You know, add new name there. You're going to hire somebody black to do something that you should have had there a long time ago anyway.
Yeah.
So don't placate us now and claim that you didn't know that this happened. No, you chose not to know because it didn't affect you personally. So therefore, you're not going to care. The opioid epidemic it's been affecting people of color for a long time. And they called us drug addicts and criminals. The minute it started impacting the white community at mass, it's a public health issue all of a sudden. And let's get federal money behind it to make sure we can remedy that. None of that federal money is going to the black communities.
When you can still listen to like old Richard Pryor routines. He's got one where he talks about things like that. I mean, he goes into detail about, he's a comedian, obviously, and you're laughing, but he was dead on. Talking about chokehold, talking about, they, talking about in LA, he's like, they got a chokehold out here that they put on nigga, and he said, they put it on you and they go, snap. Oh shit, he broke. All he broke. Can we break a nigga? Yep, we can break it. Oh, it says right here we can break a nigga. Okay, good job. That's how it is. Right. That's how it is. And he talks about what were we just talking about? Not only the breaking black people thing, but I forgot. What were you just saying, Dino?
About the different organizations, the Black Lives Matter. We call this a senior moment here.
Yeah, this is a senior moment. But he talked about things as a whole. He talked about things that were so on point for the 70s. And they are on point today. Now. Yeah. They're on point today,
and even think about even the 90s with the rap, hip hop and rap music when NWA was, singing the song F the Police. I mean, that was a shocker for most of the United States. It wasn't a shocker for us.
Right.
This is reality. This is what we see all the time. Walking on the street and getting guns pointed at you, accused of doing something you did or didn't do, being framed for things, and that's being caught down on video. That's a big difference right now. People are filming everything now. And, police with body cameras are filming themselves doing it.
Right. Which is ridiculous to me. It's like, you have a camera that's recording all
it's recording you planting that drug on that person. And you're going to write a police report that says different?
It's like, what are you doing? What do you think you can do when you get back to the office that we don't know about?
So when you have those policies in place, and that's why we think about, that it's all normalized now. We just think it's the way it is. And that's how people sometimes write it off as. It's just the way it is. Right. No, it's the way it is because you made it the way it is and you refuse to do any changes to it because it benefits you.
I had a co-worker, well, not a co-worker, somebody I used to work with. I can't remember how I know her, but we were just discussing where she's from. She's from Mississippi. And she was talking about how much she loves Mississippi versus up here. And then she said, she made sure she threw in, she said, we do have a different way of doing things down there. A different culture, different way we do things. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. And she said, but that's how we do. We just, all right, that's just how it is down there. And as long as you can, deal with that, you'd be all right. And I'm sitting there going, seriously? And I mean, I don't know if it's just
that's how you normalize it.
Yeah, this my militant Chicago came out, it's like, you just normalized racism. You just made it like it's acceptable as long if you can deal with it, it's okay. If you can deal with yes ma'am, no ma'am, all that, and not a respect because you just respect them as maybe an elder, but as just because out of fear. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna cut it off real soon, because we've been sitting here. Maybe we'll come back and visit some of these.
We've been talking a lot.
But one thing that irks me in this society, when I can go into, I'm just going to say fast food restaurant. I can go into a fast food restaurant, and behind the counter, there is a young white kid, maybe about 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. The person in front of me will be a white man, maybe my age or maybe even a little younger. Not that I'm super old, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not a kid. I'm not your age. I'm an elder. The white guy, when he comes up, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to whatever. Can I help you? What can I help you? What can I do for you? Fine. I get up there. What's up, man?
Yeah.
I'm like,
You
what's
don't know
up,
me? He's
man?
like, wait, you don't know me?
You don't know me. I'm obviously, and I'm looking. I'm like, I know I don't look like I'm your age. I would love to say, I look younger than most than my age, but I know I don't look 19. You know, why are you addressing me differently than the way you just addressed him? It's respect.
Right.
It's how you look at me. You don't look at me with respect. You look at me as, and in your mind, you may think that's respect that you're giving me because you're going, hey, what's up, man? Like, that's how I want to be addressed.
Right.
No, address me. I've done that before. And when I reply, I'll go, good afternoon, young man. How are you? And they'll go, I'm fine, sir. That's when they say, sir. Okay, so let me have this, and this. Then afterwards, it's sir. After that. Why do I have to do that?
You have to fight that. We have to fight tooth and nail just to be seen.
Right.
And recognized.
And to be respected. To be respected. Like they said, you know, a boy, you can be 80 years old and be a boy. In Alabama, in the South, it's just like that here. They don't call you boy, but that's what what's up means to if somebody 75, 80 walks up and talks to a 19-year-old, what's up, man? That's what that means. You basically just said, yo, boy. You know,
right.
That's what that. Okay,
and just whole sense of being invisible to this to this nation.
Yeah,
I mean, I love Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. Just the first few pages, that analogy of this man walking through life and not being seen, and going into his apartment with lights all around him. He's turning on all the lights, and it gets so bright that you don't see him anymore. You know. He turns them on to be seen, but you turn on so many, you're not seen anymore.
You're not seen
I
anymore.
keep on. I must have picked up Invisible Man 10 different times to try. I think I read it in parts, so I read the whole book in parts because it's a big volume to digest. Because you're not just reading it through for an next one. I'm reading it and digesting, and so. But I always go before I even start reading again. I always go to those first 15, 20 pages and read that first part with the lights, because that resonates with me, and things like that resonate with me and keeps me motivated to keep moving forward. We have a lot of work to do, and it's not going to happen in one generation. It's not going to happen in a push. But I think you asked the question earlier: what do we need to do? What are the things? One is reshaping education. In terms of Shorefront, we need a community to financially get behind an organization, because we see what other organizations are doing and say, well, why can't we be like this museum over there? And I said, well, you have an entire community that has contributed financial and leaving financial wills to support this organization. I'm asking for a $20 membership. And I'm getting pushback from that. I said, oh, that's so much. But you're going to spend $100 on a pair of gym shoes. You're getting your weave tightened up every week. Your nails done. I mean, those are all temporary things. What do you mean you can't invest in your history that benefits the entire community? Not even just Black community, the entire community. We're being looked at now, not just locally, but nationally. We are a model for a lot of other community-based archives and how to run something like that as an independent archive.
Right.
So people are watching us. We had, one of our former board members and hard worker, Doria Johnson, may she rest in peace. She did work over in South Africa and brought Shorefront over there. And now people in South Africa, archivists in South Africa, know about Shorefront.
There you go.
And that's important. That here we are, just doing what we're doing locally and wanting to give that gift to the community and give that gift to the world to do what you need to do with it. Control your narrative. It's like the mantra I say all the time, control your narrative. Don't let somebody else tell you what you can't do.
That's huge.
Just do it.
That's huge.
And people will come around and collaborate with you with that.
Huge. I mean, just one of the things that we've experienced, and I know Dino's told me this story. Someone came to him some a black person told us that we needed to find a good Jew
Oh my
to support
gosh.
Shorefront. Now, this was a black person who could support and could give and whatever, never did. Told us we need to find a good Jew. That just
That was the most disheartening.
Oh my God! You know, especially when you think you've gotten to a point that the message is getting through and is getting
Right.
through to people. You have a black person of prominence, of financial ability, to tell you need to go somewhere else. Not you need to go to another black person that he thinks that maybe would be more beneficial. You need to go to another race and have them contribute.
And that was so counter to our message.
Totally counter to the message.
You know, it's
like, what?
we got to ask permission from somebody else to do our own history. That's basically what it said to us.
Right, exactly.
And it just didn't make any sense.
Unreal.
But
So-
yeah, I mean, so those are the walls you have to deal
Yeah,
with.
those are the walls that, and I've been around to see a lot of the walls, and I guess how I want to kind of end this is we need to support ourselves. It's dire that we support ourselves, that we take control, like you say, of our own narrative. Because if we don't, somebody's going to do it for us. This is why slavery only has half a page in
Right.
the.
It's half a page now. It used to be a paragraph.
It's a half page now. It's gone to a half page. now.
Progress.
Yeah, I think it has somebody. I think the next paragraph is about Harriet Tubman.
Oh, I can't wait.
I can't wait. The updated American History book, 2021. But you know, that's the kind of thing that we have to deal with as an organization, as Shorefront. I mean, we're fortunate that we have someone like you as a leader, but as Shorefront, I know that there are things that we're going to move forward with, and just to let you guys in on a little secret, Dino and I had a discussion before all this. We got some stuff brewing that's gonna.
We're always brewing.
There's always brewing that's gonna come out that we're gonna need not only you to listen to, but for you to support. You know, things like that. But Dino, thank you for being here.
You know, thank you for listening.
No, hey, my pleasure, my pleasure. And I think we're probably going to have to talk again because I want to keep this dialogue going. I want to keep this going. This isn't just right now and then that's it. I want to do this again, probably real soon.
Okay.
Say, hey, let's talk about what we're doing now, things like that. But like I said, we got some stuff coming up soon. Tell me about, if people want to find out more about Shorefront, donate to Shorefront.
Sure. So Shorefront, we have websites, but go to shorefrontlegacy.org, you know, take you to all of our sites. We have a new site that's on there. I would really love everybody to look at that. It's called shorefrontvoice.org. And that has a collection of oral histories of people that we interviewed in the mid to late 1990s. And a few more contemporary ones, too, that we've done recently. And that's going to be a growing site. But we have about 38 oral history interviews you can listen to and read the transcripts online. That's important because it really gives us a good slice of life, of people's lives and experiences and what they've done in the community and what they've experienced in the community that developed Black life on the North Shore. We have a journal that is open for contributions. Contributed writing from anyone. And then there's also space there, of course, you can donate financially. Just click on that, donate what feels good for you. The monies go to the care of our collection. We have over 300 linear feet of archival material that constantly needs, boxing, processing. We bring in graduate student level experience to processing the collection and make them available with finding aids. We have open hours on Saturdays and by appointment during a weekday when it's possible. But our archives are used. And scholars from all around the country have come in to utilize our archives for their specific work, for their papers, documentary films, books, publications, whatever you name it. That's what they're there for, to be used, to be remembered, to create content so that people can learn. I mean, my vision is to have this, local Black history common knowledge. Right. And having that resource and access to that resource for the public to use is extremely important for Shorefront. It doesn't do any good sitting in a box.
Absolutely.
It needs to be living and breathing, and that's what we do with Shorefront.
Absolutely. And if I can just say, you're doing a fantastic job. I hope that I can help in any kind of way, but you're doing a fantastic job. And if I have anything to do with it, Shorefront's going to continue to move forward.
Thank you. We have a good board.
Oh, so. We sure do. We sure do. You guys should join a board meeting. It's actually cool.
It's kind of fun.
It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. So, again, Dino, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being here. And with that said, everyone, I will be back in a moment to take us out. All right? See you in a minute. Shorefront is an organization that collects, preserves, and educates the public about Black history on Chicago's suburban North Shore. Located in Evanston, Illinois, and with archival collections dating before 1900, Shorefront's archives have been accessed and cited around the globe. To support Shorefront, or for just more information, feel free to go to shorefrontlegacy.org. That's shorefrontlegacy.org.
Say, Doll, had a gander at Playtime with Bill Turk and Carrie Kendall?
I hear it's a cat's meow, Mac. The Arts, every Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. on WCGO AM 1590 95.9 FM.
Why, you're no dumb Dora.
The bee's knees, I tells ya.
Take a load off them dogs here and tune in Sundays from 1 to 3.
The Arts, every Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. on WCGO AM 1590 95.9 FM.
Thank you once again for listening to the Chip Ratliff Show. Don't forget to enjoy, follow, and share this episode. Until next time, take care of yourself and peace.